Hello, hello. I am LJ Longo, a freelance editor and the award-winning author of over 14 books, many of which were written in Scrivener, which is what we are here to talk about today. Now, Scrivener, as you probably know from clicking on this tutorial, is a writing program that is used to write novels, short story collections, epic series, sometimes script writing, and apparently nonfiction works as well, based on these templates I'm looking at. I use it for novels, short story collections, and series books, not only to write these books, but to revise these books. It is a vital part of my drafting to be able to look at a document in one page and type it in a different one. So Scrivener is exceptionally useful for that. I also find Scrivener really useful for making synopses, creating outlines, and just kind of winging it through my first draft if I feel like being messy, if I have not prepared a proper outline, which occasionally I do. But Scrivener does have a pretty steep learning curve, so I'm going to try to walk some of my time-crunched author friends through the first steps. So first, this is what you look at when you have first downloaded Scrivener, and it's going to show you the interactive tutorial, the user manual, video tutorials. These are great if you have a lot of time and attention to, but I would recommend starting with a blank document and just filling things in, maybe following along with this. All right, I'm going to start with The Mentor, which is my latest work on paperback radio, because I've written part one, but I have not written part two, so I think that'll be a great thing for us to do together. So once you're just looking at a blank slate of Scrivener, it looks a lot like Google or Word. It's got the same options to let you choose different kinds of text. I'm going to do something fun. Lets you choose if it's going to be regular, the font size, the spacing on it, same bold, same italics, all that kind of stuff. And it has the same keyboard shortcuts. So Control A, Control I, unitalicized it, Control B is making it larger. It's got similar, really intuitive windows. I can like make the text larger by zooming in on it. I can justify, center, all that kind of stuff, add highlights, make outlines. So it all looks very much like a Google Doc or Word. Same down to the format bar. I can go to format, I can go to paragraph, get my indents going over here to the 0.5 that I like because I'm old. And I think there's even a way to like view rulers or something if you like that, which I don't, so I'm not going to. But it gives you the sense of it looks a lot like Word. One of the things that this blank text processor does that Word does not is it lets you set targets. That's down here in this corner. So immediately I could say, this is going to be a novel. I know I have a tendency to overwrite my chapters, so I want to set a maximum 4,000 words. Let's make it 5,000 words, but a minimum of 2,000. This is going to let me keep track of it here. And I'll show you an example by copying and pasting. You can see how the line down here, 819 words, were creeping steadily towards what my minimum target was. Copy it all again. So I'm almost at my minimum. Now I have almost hit my maximum. I'm going to go over it now. And you can see it has told me when I was at my maximum range is when it was green. At red is the overrun. So now you can also see down here, it's got 6,500 words out of my 5,000. Knowing that I want to have it somewhere in the 2,000 range, I can now zap up here to maybe the center and say, oh, this space right here looks like a good scene break. Let me Control Shift K, which is going to make a new document. And now I have split that document in two. So now I'm inside my word count for both documents. When I did that, it automatically did something pretty special over here. It opened up my binder. That's this little doohickey here. Lets you see the binder. Also lets you see that stupid ruler if you like rulers, which I don't. It also lets you turn off your format bar if you don't like seeing that, which it does not bother me. The binder lets you see what documents exist in your Scrivener project right now. At the moment, I have this one. It seems to be totally blank. That was the default start one. This was my first text for it. You notice it has titled it already based on the text I first typed in there. So I'm going to call it chapter 1. And now I also have chapter 2. If I said, hey, I don't want to include notes here, notes is actually part of my research document, I can just grab it, move it down. It is now no longer part of my draft. The next thing I want to show you while we're in the document view is possibly my favorite Scrivener feature, the one that allows me to focus while I'm writing. And this is called composition mode. I'm just going to click on this, and you can see what it's done for me. This puts your text very much front and center. Where I have it positioned, it's blocking out my clock, it's blocking out everything on my desktop, and it lets me focus on the beautiful picture that I have over here, which is of a character in a story I'm writing right now. If you scroll down to the bottom, it does give you the information like, oh, I'm at 3,000 of my 5,000 words for this document. It also lets you play around with where this is positioned. So if you're someone who wants to see your clock or you have other note sheets up, you can move it around. You can zoom in or zoom out depending on how much you want to see. You can also make it take up your whole screen or just a tiny part of it depending on how much space you actually want. You can also fade out the background or see it really sharp. So it's just overlaying it. Everything is blocked out. So it's just you and the page. I love composition mode. The other feature I really love in Scrivener is split panes. With the click of the button, you can see 2 documents side by side. This is the same document. In order to show you split pane, I need to import something, so I'm going to grab it off of the desktop and just drag it into the Scrivener project and drop it where I want it. Really super easy, intuitive way to just drag and drop right into the project. Takes a minute for it to buffer up. What doesn't take time these days? Now we have notes, question mark, and then we have notes. My actual notes for this. Synopsis of the idea. And now we have something like the beat sheet. These are telling me a few of the ideas I know I want to have happening in here. But then I have this other thing down here, performance and vocal notes. So I'm going to highlight this, going to Control Shift K, and it has given me a new one that starts here. I'm going to copy and paste that. Extremely useful way of, if you are someone who has complicated ideas and you like to look back and forth from things, if you have some research, let's say I take actually all of these guys and put them where I would normally put them inside of the research panel, I can still see them all over here. I want to show you another way of importing something just because I have another document to import here. Use that by file, import, files. So if you have things that have been written, if you have a bunch of notes for a story, a lot of different documents, gather them all in one place. You can put them in your Scrivener and you will be able to pull on them at any given time. So this is my script all written. So this one is Act 1, is Part 1 that is already written, already recorded, currently appears on paperback radio. I still need to write Mentor Part 2. So let's create a new text. Call that one the Mentor Part 2. And then I can literally look at one right next to the other. So I can copy these guys, paste it in here, and now I know I'm going to be working with the same exact formatting, the same kind of font. So when I put them together to print later on, it's going to look the same. So that is the gist of what makes Scrivener's default interface different from Word and Google. So let's take a look now at some of the things that really elevate Scrivener to probably the best writing software on the market, especially if you are revising, redrafting, rewriting an entire novel, or God forbid, a series. And the first tool I want to look at is the corkboard, every plotter's dream. You get to corkboard with this little corkboard looking icon up here. Click on that when you are inside of draft, not a subdocument. And that shows me notes as its own little pin here. As I begin to create items in here, they're adding those documents. So let me show you how we can use the corkboard to plan out episode 2 of The Mentor. So back here in my beautiful split pane view, let's look for a minute at the subdocuments. You're seeing this screen here because Mentor Part 1 contains no subdocuments. So if I click on Draft, now you can see where I have all of these guys in the corkboard. By default, when the synopsis is empty here, Scrivener is going to try to fill it in for you. So it's going to give you in this light gray color of the first lines of the piece. If you import a full document, maybe your first draft of something, and then begin to break up the chapters, you will still be able to see in that gray print which chapter it is. But let's use this as if we are drafting it for the first time and write our idea as the synopsis. A young woman, Dee Dee, accidentally kills her boyfriend while breaking up with him as part of a sorority pledge. She calls the only person she thinks can help her, Amanda, a down-to-earth older woman. Quickly, Dee Dee realizes this is a bad decision, as Amanda is batshit insane and maybe a serial killer. Actually, Dee Dee's not that self-aware. As Amanda walks Dee Dee through how to get away with murder, the audience realizes Amanda has not only done this before, but is manipulating Dee Dee in frightening ways. So you can see I've added the synopsis. This got much larger as I was going than it did when it was just filling it in by itself. Also notice this didn't overwrite or alter any of the actual text in Mentor 1, which is my actual script. So if you're a plotter, you're writing your whole plot out here. If you're a pantser, during the revision stage, you're rereading your document and you're using this to keep track of what's happening when. You can literally be over here looking at your novel, open up this tool called the inspector, and see that little synopsis tab. So you can be taking notes about what is happening during that document and keeping it here. If you're very disciplined about this and you write 1 or 2 sentences about each thing in these chapters, at the end of this process, you will have a completed synopsis. I am never that disciplined, but it is something I can do while rereading. I'll be like, this is what happened, pop that in the synopsis. So in the end, during revision, I get my synopsis. Moving on to the next feature. This yellow notes panel here allows you to take notes for the whole document here. This is not the same as the synopsis, so if you're just like, oh, I really like this spelling of Maddie, or there's this fun thing where Amanda talks in a silly voice, and I want to make sure I have that accessible later on. As you move down the script, that's going to stay here, so you can actually take a note of something that happens here. If I took this document at the end and Control-Shift-K made a new one, it will start a new synopsis, but it will keep those notes for me. So this note you can take through the entire document from start to finish. I often use this as a section to write a log line of a script or the general idea of a thing, and just keep copying, keep it going with me throughout the thing. So I have this reference sheet down here to kind of keep me focused about what's going on in that particular section. Going back into the corkboard. Note the note is here now. So let me show you how we can combine some of these features. So I've opened the corkboard into the split pane. Now I'm bringing up my beat sheet. I can go into Mentor Part 2, and I can try to see this as a corkboard, and I can add subdocuments to it. So this one, apparently in my notes, I was calling it the child, tones, coercion, possession. I can call this scene 1, and I can take, open the cold line of the callback, and just paste it in here. It is copied over my note into the synopsis. Now we're just going to duplicate this. If you put the dash in, it should automatically make this scene 1, scene 2 as we go. Let's see if it works. Duplicate again. Yep, now we have it scene 3. So that's how an organized person might use a pre-existing document and break it up. I want to show you another way of doing that that takes place directly in the document. I'm going to make a duplicate of beat sheet. I'm going to put it right, and we're going to call this one Mentor Part 2 again. So when I come into here, I'm just looking at this. Once again, I'm in the document view, no longer in corkboard. Actually, let's imagine this was my tone for the whole thing. This was my note for the whole piece. Okay, I'm just gonna clean some stuff up here real quick. Retitle this scene-1. That way, as I continue to make them, they're gonna go scene-2, scene-3, etc. Each of these little paragraphs represents one of the scenes I need to write. So I'm gonna use Control-Shift-K at the beginning of each of them and make them into separate documents. You can see that scene 3 is changing, now it's scene 4. I can also do this manually by doing split at selection. I'll do that again, split at selection. That's a right click. And you're getting the gist of this. I have about 7 of these now. 8, okay. And finally 9. And somehow that happened. So somehow we had a blank scene that just kind of popped in there. I'm just going to go send that to the trash, and we are no longer in order. But you could see that it had been building things in order. So actually, I'm just going to put that back in there in case, pretend I did that on purpose. If I go here now and I copy all of these guys, and I'm doing that with a shift and clicking down, I can actually take all these guys and put them into their own folder, new folder from selection. I could move them around, add them to a collection, or new folder from section. We're calling that. I don't care about things because that's all going to go in the trash in a minute. So you can see now I'm here in the corkboard. I can see that this one is empty, so I can delete it by moving it to the trash. And now I can just go through and manually correct the titles on these guys. Oops. Going through chopping it up like that is slightly different than how I was originally doing it, because the way we originally did it, writing the synopsis down in, left that synopsis text in dark black in the inspector. When we duplicated it, we got the note consistent throughout, but the inspector scene is empty. That is just the text in the actual document showing up here in the synopsis. So we would still have to fill in the inspector synopsis, the official card on the back like this one has. So equally valid ways of doing something if you've imported and broken it up. It all depends on how you want to do your scrivening. You can look at multiple documents at the same time in composition mode by selecting them all in the binder and then hitting composition mode. So now, as I sit down to write episode 2 of this podcast, I have all of my notes, all of my beat sheet here, and I can just begin typing. So I know that the first line of this is going to be something like, if I knew you were such a bitch, I'd never help you hide that body. And it kind of allows me to see everything as I go. Each of those is still going to be its own separate document with its own separate word count. So if you had multiple chapters, if you know you want to jump ahead, like here, I've jumped ahead to the end. The final feature I want to show you guys is the outline, and then outline is this final one over here, this blue one. And let's look back to the one we had just started making, Mentor Part 2. And we'll look at this in the outline mode. Whoops, the one we just made is the one that did not have synopsis. So let me move over to the first one we did where we wrote in that text. It became dark black text. So you can see from here, I have the title and synopsis beginning to be built here. If I had filled that in for this crazy one here, I would have all 8 of them, but I think this explains what's going on here. If I set targets, the target would appear. The outline tool gives you this broad overview of every single chapter or scene, however you break it up, and also lets you see these label and status tabs. Both of these are fully editable. Label is color coded, so I tend to use that one for characters, so I can follow who's my point of view character throughout the document. Status is defaulting to, is it done? Is it in progress? Where are you at with it? Shitty first draft, notes. My editorial revisions are the ones I have added here. So you can really change any of this. So you could make this one is full of world building details, or this is where a murder happens. If you're trying to keep a timeline, you might be able to do stuff like that with a status right here. And you'd be able to see those pretty quickly. So status is going to work exactly the same way. So for example, I will grab these two here, and I can say their status is notes, and it has shifted to notes. I can say these guys all need to be written, and their status is to do. It is organizing it by status right now, so that's why the to-dos jump to the bottom of it. Let's do something crazy. Let's take these 3 scenes and pop them down here into the second one as the first 3 scenes here, and look at it again. So now you can see where the synopsises that we built are inside of here. Because I know it's scene 1 through 3. I can just take those guys out and move them to the trash, because I know this is going to go 1, 2, 3 to 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and my notes here. So I can say these guys, the synopsis is ready. So maybe I will use the yellow label to indicate the synopsis is done. um, and the status on these guys is also going to be to do, because I haven't written any of this yet. So that is the outliner. Really useful to me in seeing where my word counts are overdone. Sort of gauging based on who I have speaking at any given moment, or who my narrator is if I have a graded narrative, which I have several projects that do that. Let's go back again to one of these documents. Let's go back to part 1 over here, back here, and look at another section in here. You can see labels. This one is done. In fact, it has been performed, so it is green. And it is the final draft. It is done. So if I have mentor part 1 and add it into this, and this becomes the whole project draft now, you can now see mentor part 1, 4,012 words, green, done, which means to me, if I'm writing through this and one of these guys actually is like these two, it's not going to work. I would need to really carve that down, because part 2 cannot be that much longer than part 1. And for a podcast, 4,312 words is about 20 to 30 minutes, so that's a good length to be. Synopsis here. I'm actually going to put part 1 up at the top here. So oops. That's one of the reasons why I don't like to move things around in the outliner. I just put part 1 inside of scene 1, so I need to take that out, put it up here. I generally move things in corkboard or in the binder, just because it's the easiest way to get things where they need to be. So, but now we can see mentor is where mentor part 1 is where it goes. Mentor part 2 is all underneath it. So all of this is well and good. It gets everything inside of Scrivener. How do we get stuff out of Scrivener? And you do that with this tool right here, the compile tool. Now the compile has, when it downloads, which it's going to take a minute to do, I think. We're thinking. All right. Compile is by default not going to go to Word. It defaults to print. I don't have a printer set up, so I have trained it to go to default to Word document. I don't know what any of these guys do. I know the default and I know the outline document. Default is what you do when you want to get all of the text from everything. I imagine that's the same as Manuscript and Times is probably going to get it and format all of your crazy text and put it into a really nice layout that somehow matches somebody's idea of what a manuscript should look at. Possibly that's what these outlines are as well. I generally use the default when downloading everything, and the outline document for just looking at the synopsis. So let's just look at the synopsis to start with. If we look over here, you're going to see I'm compiling exclusively from draft. I could also do my current selection, which is just mentor part 2. I'm going to keep with the draft just because I want to show these little doohickeys over here. So based on where I have a synopsis, I know notes is not going to be part of my synopsis, and I don't think mentor part 2 is part of my synopsis. I think I'm just looking at these guys here, scene 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8. And just to show you guys, we're going to come behind. It automatically, I think I have it set up for the desktop, so we're going to call that mentor synopsis. Oh, and then we're just going to sit here a minute and wait. for it to convert and think about it. Oh, it went. So let's go over here to my desktop and see what we got. Yeah, so there it is. All the synopsis, and they like to include the end as well. If you are revising a piece, you're reading through it, taking some notes in that synopsis, then fleshing them out, making them to a full scene is, I think, the fastest and easiest way to get a really good, at least first draft of your synopsis. Another way to get to compile is just by going File, Compile, keyboard shortcut, Control-Shift-E. So we're going to compile from here. Instead of doing the outline document, I'm going to go with the default, and I'm going to include Mentor Part 1 in this, just to show you the difference. And we've compiled. We're going to not call it the Mentor because I don't want to lose my script. Mentor sample. All right, and we're saving. It's preparing, it's thinking about it, it's taking a minute, and it is now compiling, and it is now done. Nope, sorry. We're converting. This part is always weird. I generally do this with full novels, so it tends to take a minute. All right, well, we compiled beautifully, but man, oh man, why are y'all taking advice from someone who can't spell the names of their own works? Sheesh. All right, so anyway, so here's my long script. So that compiled, took it out really easily. And then as I get to the bottom, I have my notes. I have the next things that we were doing, but just the synopsis parts. So, and when I say just the synopsis parts, I want to remind everybody on this that the ones that got here are the ones that had text. So my original beat sheet does not start at negotiations becoming logistics. It does not actually start 12 minutes in. These guys did not have text. So the cold open, the proposal, all those guys that were included in the synopsis, was the synopsis here. There we go. And that's how compiling works. One real cute feature that Scrivener has is the ability to change colors. You can pick a new theme and just change it from that white and beige. So this Scrivener, when it comes up, is going to be beautiful blue, because I like blue. So let me bring up Heart of the Mountain. This is a series book that I'm currently in the middle of the series of. So this project holds 2 published novels, all of my drafts for those 2 published novels, the notes for the 4th novel in the series, and the current draft is the 3rd book. So that's what this one is right here. I'm bringing it up, and you're seeing in the outliner tab that I have notes, that I have label for half year's point of view, Arva's point of view, and you can see my synopsis in here. We've introduced half year. We've introduced the concept of the wilderness marriage. These 2 chapters are half year's point of view, and they're taken about 1,400, 1,900. I think that's about 4,000. I can't do math. And when I see Arva's point of view, her next chapter is about 3,000. So we have given them equal time by chapter 3. And you notice my synopsis has kind of fallen apart at this point because this is parts where I'm still writing, I'm still in notes. So I haven't done those sections yet, but I have been writing things in them, so that's where we're at. Let me talk a little bit about revision using a book that is not only revised but is published. Heart of the Mountain Book 2, Freeing the Witch, by me. Freeing the Witch, that is about Amalia the Witch and Porter, who I can show you in my research notes. Haha, he cooks. I love this picture. I'm just going to keep that up. So we can look at Freeing the Witch, the actual book over here. Well, actually, I don't want to distract you too much. So, this PDF here is Freeing the Witch through Evernight Publishing. So the whole book is here. So I can actually, inside of Scrivener, look for anything that has to do. Did I mention Arva at all? Yes, I did. She's a mongoose. That was very useful for me to know because I had completely forgotten when I started writing Escaping the Hunter that Arva was a mongoose and I had made her into a she-wolf. So doing a quick scan in my old document for Arva lets me know, oh wait, in the published world of the novel, she is this. I cannot have her be that. So we have the one she's referenced one time in that to talk about Halfyear and his shitty choices in women, which I love. This book has been published, it has been released, so when I show you the insanity of the draft process, note that this book was accepted. Yes, so let's look at this incredible mess that is Freeing the Witch early drafts. Includes blah sex scene. At least 5 drafts. If I go to views, I have taken out of the outliner status and labels. No, because I didn't use them. But I was when I was doing part 1, so. You can see how I use the synopsis here to write a note, cut about 1,000 words if possible, and that status is to do. Literally, as I was reading through this, trying to see what I did in my notes, I was just struck speechless by the amount of crap I kept in here. So if you're someone who keeps a lot of drafts, who rewrites a lot of things, Scrivener is definitely something you want to do, because look at all these drafts. Oh my gosh. So much stuff here. One of them which says remove 10,000 words from it, so ugh. Let me try to give a sense based on these old ones how I would go through a redraft. So I have here, this is the Freeing the Witch draft too. So this is the entirety of this book when it was just a novella. So when I began draft 3, I would have opened a new document, been looking at them side by side. It would have been blank then. And you can see immediately I changed the opening. Draft 2 started with Amalia's point of view. Draft 3 starts with the wolf's point of view. I would have literally like typed that out. Maybe copy pasted it from an earlier draft. I'm not quite sure. I'm betting when I get to draft 3 Free Me Witch 2, that is Amalia's point of view again. I think it's really very telling that draft 2 starts with this letter that's being written, and she's adjusting her scarf and she's looking outside a train and she's seeing beautiful Feyweed, and it's a lovely soft opening. Draft 3 begins, it was a gamble, Amalia knew that. What choice did she have when her mother's trying to eat her soul? So clearly when I was doing draft 3, I was thinking much more about the stakes, and I could kind of see how that was going when they're side by side like this. I want to show you another project that I'm working on. This is one I just started. This is the prep for my, I guess we're calling it Nav now. NaNoWriMo is what it used to be called. Historically, I've done really good with NaNoWriMo projects that had a lot of structure. So I decided to use the 15 beats of Blake Snyder's Save the Cat method for this. But you can see I started doing my research in here. This is the dream I had that started it all. I have some notes that I've started, a couple of, actually, I have a lot of notes I started. That's about 4,000 words in that document. But I started writing a couple of the first chapters. You can see I've started to fill out a character sheet here. I have the family in the story, which is going to be the professor. You can see how early I am. She doesn't even have a name yet. Eventually, this is going to be full of like her mother's name, father. I think she's got 2 older brothers. This is going to be a pretty large cast, a large ensemble. There's other contestants that she's going to fight again, whose names I have to sort of plug in here. Suppose I could tell you a little bit about what this project is. Oh, look, how convenient. I put the log line in already. As Earth's protective domes collapse and the orbiting majority prepare to abandon those left on the planet, a teenage inventor from a society of criminals fights to prove her worth in a high-stakes scholarship contest, one that just might save the planet from becoming a museum relic. I already have that log line attached to all of these different notes, so that's going to pop up throughout my document with me. So you can see it's here in my cast of contestants. As I continue to write this piece, I'll record names and things, in particular the sector, the appearance, the mannerisms of people, since it does look like there's going to be a lot of people in this story, and I'll need to keep them clear in my mind as well as in my reader's mind. And like I said, in a desperate attempt to control my pacing, I've been using a beat sheet. In this particular case, Save the Cat, the BS2. You can use any sort of beat sheet you wanted to fill in here. The Hero's Journey, The Heroine's Journey by Gail Carriger. Just to cover again some of the basic setup here, I'm going to head into the outliner mode to show you guys corkboard next to outliner. This is the default setup for it. You see the labels, the statuses. You can see I have the synopsis is all set up here, but this isn't how I want it set up yet. So I grab label, I move it off to the side. I'm going to pull my statuses out. I'm going to pull the synopsises out. When I'm ready to turn this beat sheet into a draft, I'm going to first duplicate everything in the beat sheet. So I am copying everything here. I'm right clicking, pressing duplicate. And now I have all that stuff. I am going to drag it right over into draft. So you can see where it was in my research, but now it is in my draft. So there's these guys over here now. Previously, I had set these up with the suggested word counts and targets. So you can see that not only do I have the to-do here, I also have my target progress and the estimated amount of words I'm hoping to have in each section. So if I start with the opening image here, I think I have that in my notes. So I will actually click out of here, go into my notes, and yep, here's some things about the opening image there. In the middle of a crime, breaking people out of a prison, and I'm going to just copy it and paste it into the opening image section here. I get that by double clicking on the white index card that will open up the text processor for me. So now when I go back to outliner after pasting it, you now see my updated total progress. I now have about 800 words in there. By 800, I now have about 400 words in there, so my total progress has changed. Okay, I jump back to my notes. I found the next section. You guys don't need to watch me suffer through and figure out where's the catalyst, where's the midpoint break, and all that other nonsense. But I did that. And then you can see how the progresses all change in here. Theme stated and opening image are really both part of setup. So I actually just grabbed them and moved them in here. Then immediately regretted doing that because when I open setup, I can see that opening image and theme stated are backwards, and now I have to manipulate and figure out how to get them in the correct order again. So I should have been doing that in the corkboard where it is easier to move things around, but you know, you live, you learn, and you don't teach it well. Once more, just look at that process going by real quick. Grab the next section of it, which in this case is chapter 4, copying it, pasting it into where I think it fits in my outline, which in this case is debate. And then you can see how immediately it updates that word count. Now, before I bore you guys to death by going through all of my notes and doing this, let me show you how to set those targets for yourself. In the word processor, in the bottom right, you will see this little square with a blue line here. That's where you can set your target by double clicking it. Then it's going to show you this screen here. You just want to set the target. Once I get all those notes in place, I will be able to begin actually writing my November project. I will hopefully be able to stay in word count using these different tools here, using the composition mode, focusing on the things with the log line and my notes in there. As I go, I'll be able to capture my character details so that when I revise or even as I'm writing, I'll have all of those details easily accessible for me in one word processor rather than having to jump around multiple different places trying to keep track of it in an Excel, in a Word doc, over Google. All of this will be with me in this one Scrivener project. All right, everyone, thank you for joining me for this. That was my introduction on how to use Scrivener as a writer to revise, to organize, to keep all your shit in one place. Sure hope this was helpful to everybody. I know I spent a lot of time talking about how I use it to sort of prep for things, but I do use this when I just kind of wing a project as well, and then I have to clean things up afterward by referencing back and forth from document to document. So I hope this was clear about how that can be useful for you. Let me know if there's anything I went over too fast or if there was something I went over too slow. I look forward to improving on this video before I share it with more people. My contact information is also up on the screen right now. I am a freelance editor. I do mostly developmental editing. I also do query coaching, book pitching. I can help you develop a back blurb and a marketing campaign for a new release, as well as publicity stuff. Anyways, thanks for joining me for this. I hope it helped you out a lot, and let me know if it did. All right, bye-bye.